Zangetsu, Hollow Ichigo, or White, regardless of the name that you refer to him as, this character who resides within Ichigo's inner world undoubtedly stands out in the Bleach universe. While Hollow Ichigo has a very unique and distinctive personality, he is in fact not a character in the traditional sense. He is an embodiment that is manifested from Ichigo's soul. Hollow Ichigo has had a profound impact on the story as well as the entire fandom. He has been the catalyst sparking several instances of growth for Ichigo's character. Hollow Ichigo is the true embodiment of the concept of instinct. He instinctively knows how to wield Ichigo's Zanpakuto better than him, and he does not hesitate to prove to Ichigo at every opportunity that he is more worthy of wielding Zangetsu than him. Hollow Ichigo has a conflicting nature. While on one hand he is an instructive mentor, on the other he is a threatening wild beast who wouldn't hesitate to devour Ichigo and take over his body if he makes the mistake of showing weakness or demonstrating that he isn't worthy of wielding Zangetsu. As iconic as Hollow Ichigo is, because of his absence in the 1000-Year Blood War arc, it has led to a lot of fans forgetting some of his most iconic moments. The Bleach story is littered with some of the most coolest moments involving Hollow Ichigo. So in this video, I want to rank my top 5 best Hollow Ichigo moments, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll remember why Hollow Ichigo is one of the best characters in all of Bleach. So without further delay, let's relive some of the most incredible moments involving Hollow Ichigo. Kicking things off with the number 5 spot, we have the very first external manifestation of Hollow Ichigo, and this of course is during Ichigo's final battle against Byakuya at the end of the Soul Society arc. The events from chapter 165 end up becoming one of my most memorable moments in all of fiction. After Ichigo showcases the newfound powers of his Bankai, he begins to falter as his newfound power is too overwhelming for him to control. This is understandable because he is still a Shinigami who is in the early stages of his development. Ichigo's own spiritual pressure begins to crush him, and it causes a noticeable slowdown in his movements. This of course results in Byakuya gaining the upper hand in their battle. Ichigo slows down to such an extent that Byakuya is able to pin him down with one of his Senkei blades and blast him with a devastating Byakurai blast through his shoulder. As he staggers from this devastating blow, Ichigo is now in a very vulnerable spot, and Byakuya takes the opportunity to end their battle. Right before Byakuya's Zanpakuto can deliver the final blow, Ichigo begins to beg his body to move. His desperation kicks in as he orders his body to do something because he needs to win. Strangely enough, Ichigo's body responds as Hollow Ichigo takes over his body for the very first time. I'd be lying if I said that this wasn't one of the most chilling entrances in all of anime and manga. Byakuya realizes that the individual before him is no longer the Ryoka that he was just fighting. As he proceeds to ask who on earth is he, Hollow Ichigo looks Byakuya in the eye and tells him that he has no name. He then begins to completely dominate the fight as he wounds Byakuya almost in revenge for hurting Ichigo. If you pay attention, this is one of the very first instances where you realize that Hollow Ichigo actually desires to protect Ichigo. In this moment, he was looking out for his best interests. When Ichigo begins to rip off his hollow mask and wrestle back control over his body, he tries to explain to Ichigo that he's actually trying to help them to win. Looking back on this scene in hindsight, it's evident that despite Hollow Ichigo's threatening and violent demeanor, Hollow Ichigo had only ever taken action when it was for the sake of saving Ichigo's life, and this point becomes more and more obvious as we continue to analyze Hollow Ichigo's appearances. The reason that this scene has been ranked in the number 5th spot is because while it is incredibly iconic, I don't believe that it features the true charm of Hollow Ichigo. Some of my favorite moments involving Hollow Ichigo include his sharp wit and his trash talking. So it's a combination of him beating the living daylights out of you while at the same time trash talking up a mad game. Despite this, Hollow Ichigo's first external manifestation is still a very iconic moment nonetheless. For the number 4 spot, we have a moment that you're all very familiar with, and it's when Hollow Ichigo brutally assaults Ulquiorra. This moment in the number 4 spot is a full-blown manifestation of what we had seen when Hollow Ichigo first takes over Ichigo's body during the Soul Society Society arc. But this moment when Hollow Ichigo takes over is anything but fun. It takes the chilling aspects of Hollow Ichigo's first takeover and it dials it up to 11. When Ichigo battles against the nihilistic Ulquiorra, it is following Aizen's departure from Hueco Mundo. It makes Ulquiorra the highest ranking Espada who has been left behind within Hueco Mundo. He is also the person who has been assigned by Aizen to watch over everything while he is away. Orihime is left in his custody and Ichigo finds himself once again battling against the 4th ranking Espada. Understandably, Ichigo struggles with Ulquiorra as the Espada kicks their battle up a notch by relocating their fight to the Canopy of Las Noches. It is here where things take a very dark turn. Ulquiorra unleashes his true power as he completely dominates Ichigo. It is insane how much of a tonal shift occurs here, as Ichigo is not only suffocated by Ulquiorra's dense Reiatsu, we the readers also become suffocated with the despair-filled atmosphere that this battle begins to exude. After Ulquiorra lands a fatal blow on Ichigo, Hollow Ichigo takes over once again. This leads to the now incredibly iconic rage moment where Hollow Ichigo in a completely hollified state delivers what is probably the most brutal assault in all of Bleach, as it almost ends in Ulquiorra's corpse being mutilated. This scene was the perfect representation of Ichigo's failure to understand and bring balance to the conflicting forces of logic and instinct that exist within his inner world. This complete takeover is also a perfect setup for what we see later on in the Arrancar arc when Ichigo enters his inner world voluntarily in order to learn the final Getsuga Tensho. While this is an incredibly important moment for Ichigo's character growth, it's not really that great of a showcase for Hollow Ichigo. Firstly, he has no dialogue at all, and all he is doing is raging and destroying Ulquiorra. If I didn't include this moment in the list, I think way too many people would be going crazy at me in the comments. But rest assured, we've got 3 way more iconic moments in my opinion, which feature Hollow Ichigo's character, proving just how much of a menace he really is. In the number 3 spot, we have Hollow Ichigo's first major appearance in the story, which occurs during chapter 110, and this is during Ichigo's battle against Kinpachi. Following Ichigo's failed attempt to defeat Kinpachi, Old Man Zangetsu appears, as he draws him into his inner world in order to face a new but oddly familiar face. This is our first proper introduction to Hollow Ichigo. The relevance and importance of this scene cannot be understated, especially for all of the things that we learned during the 1000-Year Blood War arc. We get a true sense of Hollow Ichigo's personality through this moment, and I'm totally in love with all of the dialogue that he shares with Ichigo here. He introduces himself to Ichigo as he refers to him as his partner. The personality of Hollow Ichigo is contrasted against Old Man Zangetsu, who you would never expect to refer to Ichigo as his partner. This strange level of familiarity and friendliness was accompanied with a level of violence and aggression that once again is something that we don't see with Old Man Zangetsu, who remains very mysterious but yet accommodating to Ichigo. Hollow Ichigo's duality of friendliness and violence was an excellent way of making Ichigo feel alienated. Ichigo instantly has his guard up as he does not trust his inner Hollow at all. Zangetsu's entire rant while he was attacking Ichigo in hindsight sounds a lot like he was venting his own frustrations with Ichigo not wanting to get to know him, because on one hand he acknowledges that Ichigo is his partner, but on the other hand he calls him an idiot for not wanting to get to know Zangetsu personally. It is impressive when you realize how we didn't piece all of this together so early on, because the way that Kubo writes Hollow Ichigo's character, everything was so blatantly obvious to us in hindsight. It's a testament to Kubo's incredible writing, how he subtly weaves in these important pieces of information and foreshadowing, as we learn that Ichigo's inner Hollow is the only person who can teach Ichigo how to utilize his Zanpakuto Zangetsu properly. Hollow Ichigo expresses a level of knowledge and understanding of how Ichigo can best utilize his Zanpakuto, which is something that the more friendlier Old Man Zangetsu just doesn't have. It raises the question as to why Old Man Zangetsu needed to get another spirit to come and teach Ichigo how to fight, when at this stage in the story he was supposedly Ichigo's true Zanpakuto spirit. This entire moment is such a pivotal instance in the growth of Ichigo's character, and it's a very strong showcase of Hollow Ichigo's personality, and is definitely one of my favorite moments to go back and reread within the manga or watch in the anime. Now, things are only going to get better from here, as we're now on to my final 2 picks for the best Hollow Ichigo moments. My second favorite Hollow Ichigo moment would be his reappearance during Ichigo's final Getsuga Tensho training. I've placed this moment here because of how important it is to the growth of Ichigo, as White Zangetsu for the first time is vulnerable in this instance, and he gets to show off even more of his personality here. Tensa Zangetsu rips White Zangetsu out of Ichigo's soul, as he refers to him as the source of Ichigo's despair. Prior to this moment, Ichigo had lost control of his body when his inner hollow had taken over during his battle against Ulquiorra. The way that he had brutally beaten Ulquiorra had scarred Ichigo so badly that it disrupts his ability to hollow fight properly, and because of this he had fallen into a deep despair. So when he sees Hollow Ichigo appear before him, it is quite a shock. This is because we had assumed that Ichigo had defeated his inner hollow during his training with the Vizards, and had in some way erased his inner hollow from his soul. But not only does Hollow Ichigo reveal himself here in one of the most iconic manga panels in all of Bleach, he also delivers a few lines of foreshadowing for another major revelation that occurs later on in the story. Now in this moment we get more of Hollow Ichigo's trademark snarkiness as he ridicules Ichigo for being surprised at seeing him again. This cheeky, cocky attitude veils Hollow Ichigo's true feelings. This is one of the best indicators of why Hollow Ichigo was never a threat to Ichigo, and how Hollow Ichigo had only ever wanted to protect him. In this instance, Hollow Ichigo is perfectly capable of speech, but he remains silent for the majority of the time that he appears. This is a totally different side to his character that unfortunately we never see again. It's everything that Hollow Ichigo doesn't say here that makes his appearance so impactful. He remains silent as Tensa Zangetsu explains how the two of them are an important part of Ichigo and they are the source of his powers, as it is literally then spelled out to us that both Hollow Ichigo and Old Man Zangetsu are both Ichigo's powers and they were originally one being, as the two then fuse together forming White Tensa Zangetsu. White Tensa Zangetsu is analysed in full detail in one of my own standalone videos, which I highly recommend that you all check out. So with this out of the way, let's move on to my number one favourite Hollow Ichigo moment in the entirety of Bleach. In my opinion, my number one pick is a no-brainer. It's not just Hollow Ichigo's greatest moment in Bleach, it is also one of my favourite moments overall in the story. I'm of course referring to one of the most iconic speeches in all of anime and manga, and it's when Hollow Ichigo delivers his unforgettable speech on instinct. This speech marks the beginning of Ichigo's inner conflict against his logic versus his instinct. This speech pokes holes in Ichigo's flawed mentality towards fighting, and it brings into the spotlight how Ichigo would be unable to save anyone or anything if he doesn't first embrace his desire to fight, as well as his desire to destroy. The importance of this speech on instinct is to make Ichigo understand that he cannot protect anything with a blunt sword. Hollow Ichigo actually takes the time to explain in full detail how Ichigo's mindset has been holding him back, and the way that he is behaving is going to get the two of them killed. This moment is factually the closest thing that we ever get to Hollow Ichigo reaching out to Ichigo in an attempt to try and make him realize that there are aspects of himself that he needs to accept. Repeatedly throughout the story, Ichigo has been rejecting his inner hollow. His refusal to accept this integral part of himself results in him losing to Yami, Grimmjow, and even to Ulquiorra. These failures all culminate into Hollow Ichigo taking over his body and defeating Ulquiorra mercilessly. Hollow Ichigo's speech on instinct is him flexing on Ichigo at his very best. Not only does he roast Ichigo's entire mindset here, he also literally beats up Ichigo. It's easily one of his most memorable moments ever, and it's one of his best showings of his berserker style of fighting, as he utilizes Ichigo's Bankai in a totally different manner and style, which Ichigo just doesn't have the instinctive creativity to do. Hollow Ichigo's speech on instinct is exhilarating, and the battle that ensues after it is unforgettable. This scene also serves as the perfect foreshadowing for a massive reveal that we learn about Hollow Ichigo during the 1000-Year Blood War arc. This is of course where we learn that Hollow Ichigo is in fact Zangetsu. During his speech on instinct, Hollow Ichigo had blatantly yelled to him that he is Zangetsu. This is something that Ichigo and even fans who were reading the story had completely disregarded, until Kubo reminded us of this instance via all of the revelations that we learned during the final arc. This entire moment where Ichigo interacts with his inner hollow wraps up with Hollow Ichigo warning him that if he shows even the slightest weakness or if he gets close to death, then he is going to take over his body once again. This of course is foreshadowing Ichigo's full hollow transformation against Ulquiorra, something that people to this day claim is still an arsepull. This entire speech on instinct is one of the greatest moments for Ichigo's character growth, and it's a fantastic piece of writing which reveals the deeper aspects of Ichigo's relationship with his inner hollow. And it's for this reason that this takes the number 1 spot for the best Hollow Ichigo moment in my opinion. We've now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your top 5 favorite Hollow Ichigo moments from the story? I do wish that this was a character that we got to see a bit more of within the story, but I think it's as a result of his limited appearances that he is such a memorable character for Bleach fans, and why a lot of the revelations surrounding him have remained a mystery up until the final arc. I think that if Hollow Ichigo appeared any more within the story, it would have been way too blatantly obvious that he is in fact Ichigo's true Zanpakuto spirit. So yeah, definitely continue the discussion about Hollow Ichigo in the comments. Let me know what were your favorite moments involving his character. Lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.